you know what? You put your head like this, I did my head like this. So it's like, you can see that I'm putting my ear, it's like I'm setting myself up. I do like this, and when you bit my ear, it show you how I pull my arm, because you were holding my arm, and I pull my arm out.
Good in the first fight. What happened here? He got bit, I think. Evander Holyfield.
At 59, Evander Holyfield finally reveals the five punchers. He feared the most. Evander Holyfield once said, "I feared only him." Those words hang heavy when you think about a man called the Warrior. This was a fighter who never backed down, who built a legend on courage. But fear? That word tells a different story. It shows us the other side of greatness, the side where even champions feel the weight of danger. At 59, Holyfield opened up about 5 names that haunted him most. 5 punchers who made him question everything. These were the men who pushed him to his absolute limit. Some beat him, some broke him. One never even fought him, but still earned a spot on the list. This is the story of Evander Holyfield's 5 greatest fears. Let's start with the man who delivered the single hardest punch Holyfield ever felt. George Foreman was 42 years old when they met in 1991. Age had not softened him. If anything, time had made his power more terrifying. Holyfield described getting hit by Foreman as being struck with a bowling ball. Not a fist, not a glove. A bowling ball. That tells you everything about the type of force Foreman carried. This was not speed. This was not technique. This was pure, crushing mass transferred through bone and muscle into your skull. Foreman weighed more than Holyfield. He stood taller. He hit harder than anyone else in the division. When his punches landed, they did not look pretty. They looked slow. They looked harmless. But inside your head, everything rattled. Your teeth felt loose. Your vision blurred. Your legs forgot how to work. In round 11 of their fight, Foreman landed a looping right hand. Holyfield did not see it coming. It came down between his guard and crashed into his jaw. When he got back to his corner, Holyfield did something he had never done before. He asked his team if he still had all his teeth. Think about that. A man who had been hit thousands of times in his life suddenly wondered if his teeth were still in his mouth. That is the level of impact Foreman delivered. That punch bypassed the gloves, bypassed the mouth guard, and reached straight into the bone. Holyfield later said he could not stay in range too long against Foreman. He had to move constantly. He had to clinch. He had to survive. Winning that fight by decision was not about dominating Foreman. It was about escaping him. Holyfield spent 12 rounds running from a 42-year-old man because standing still meant getting destroyed. That is not control. That is survival. Foreman was bigger than Tyson. Foreman hit harder than Tyson. Holyfield admitted that openly. Where other heavyweights used speed and footwork, Foreman just swung a sledgehammer. His power came from sheer size and leverage. Fighting him was like trying to box a building. You could move around it, you could poke at it, but if it fell on you, you were finished. Holyfield won the fight, but the cost was clear. He left that ring knowing he had been in a war zone. The victory was real. The damage was permanent. Foreman had 68 career knockouts, an 84% knockout rate that proved his power was not just hype, it was documented destruction. Holyfield survived what many others could not, but surviving is different from winning comfortably. He barely made it through. Next came Riddick Bowe, the man who broke Holyfield in ways no one else did. Their trilogy in 1992, 1993, and 1995 is famous for all the wrong reasons. These were not tactical masterpieces, they were brutal, grinding wars of attrition. Bowe did not knock you out with one punch. He wore you down, round by round, shot by shot, jab to the head, hook to the body, over and over until you had nothing left. Holyfield said Bowe's punches took something out of him every single round. That is attritional warfare. That is punishment designed to break your spirit before it breaks your body. In their first fight, Bowe weighed 235 pounds. Holyfield weighed 205. That 30-pound difference showed up in every exchange. Bowe was bigger, stronger, and meaner on the inside. He used his size to bully Holyfield against the ropes. He dug hooks into the body until Holyfield's ribs screamed. He landed jabs that snapped Holyfield's head back again and again. Bowe handed Holyfield his first professional loss in 1992. That alone earns him a spot on this list. But it gets worse. In their third fight in 1995, Bowe knocked Holyfield out. Not just down, out. That was the only time in Holyfield's entire career that he was stopped by punches. Bowe put him on the canvas and kept him there. That is the ultimate proof of power. It does not matter how tough you are. It does not matter how much heart you have. When the right punches land enough times, your body shuts down. Bowe found that limit in Holyfield. He crossed it. The long-term damage from those 3 fights was severe. Holyfield fought on for years afterward, but he was never the same. The Bowe trilogy aged him overnight. It drained his reserves. It left scars that never fully healed. Winning 1 out of 3 fights against Bowe does not erase the fact that Bowe owned him physically. Bowe took years off Holyfield's career. He made Holyfield pay for every second they shared in the ring. That is not just power, that is domination. The physical toll of fighting Bowe cannot be overstated. Each fight lasted 12 full rounds of savage combat. Each round saw hundreds of punches thrown. Each punch carried bad intentions. Holyfield's face swelled after these fights, his body bruised purple and yellow, his corner worried between rounds. This was not boxing, this was warfare, and Bowe won the war. He had a 78% knockout rate across his career, proving he could finish almost anyone he faced. Holyfield was no exception. The only knockout loss of his career belongs to Bowe. That fact haunts Holyfield's legacy forever. In the third fight, Bowe stopped him in the 8th round. Holyfield could not answer the bell. His body quit. His will was still there, but his flesh failed him. That is what Bowe did to people. He broke them from the inside out. Then there was Mike Tyson, the man everyone feared. Tyson was different from Foreman and Bowe. His power was not about size or attrition, it was about explosiveness. Tyson threw punches like rattlesnake strikes, fast, sudden, deadly. Holyfield said Tyson's power was like nothing you could prepare for. Every punch felt like it could end the fight. Tyson did not need to land 10 shots. He only needed one. That kind of threat changes everything. You cannot relax. You cannot breathe. You have to be alert every single second because one mistake means lights out. Tyson was very tricky according to Holyfield. He threw a lot more different shots than Foreman. He could get to you a lot quicker. That combination of speed and power created a psychological nightmare. Even if you survived the first round, you knew the next punch could be the one. Tyson's 44 knockouts proved that this was not just fear. It was a reality. He ended careers in minutes. Holyfield beat Tyson twice. He stopped him in the 11th round of their first fight. He won by disqualification in the rematch. But those victories came at a cost. Holyfield's strategy was pure defense. Stay in the clinch. Smother the power. Do not let Tyson breathe. Do not let him set his feet. Do not let him explode. That is not fighting. That is containment. Holyfield spent both fights trying to neutralize a bomb. He succeeded, but barely. Tyson was out on his feet in the 11th round of the first fight, but up until that moment, Holyfield was absorbing punishment that would have killed most fighters. Tyson's power was not just physical, it was mental. He made you fight scared. He made you second-guess everything. Holyfield had to remove that psychological edge to win. That took incredible mental strength, but it also shows how dangerous Tyson truly was. Even in defeat, Tyson forced Holyfield to fight a perfect fight. One mistake would have meant disaster. The psychological warfare Tyson waged was legendary. Fighters crumbled before the first bell rang. They saw Tyson's dead eyes during the stare-down and lost their nerve. Holyfield refused to break mentally, but the physical danger was always present. Tyson at 30 years old was still explosive, still dangerous, still capable of ending anyone's night in seconds. Holyfield had to be perfect for 11 rounds just to survive. Every clinch was strategic. Every step backward was calculated. Holyfield fought the entire bout in fear management mode. He knew what Tyson could do. He saw the highlight reels of bodies hitting the canvas. He understood the stakes. That kind of mental pressure wears on you just as much as the punches. Lennox Lewis was next on the list, and he represented something even more terrifying than raw power. Lewis had technique. He had size. He had reach. He had precision. Holyfield said Lewis was one of the few fighters he could not overpower. That is a devastating admission. Holyfield built his career on toughness and inside fighting. He could grind down bigger men through sheer will. But Lewis was different. Lewis could hurt you without overcommitting. He did not need to load up. He did not need to take risks. He just jabbed. He just moved. He just picked you apart from distance. Holyfield fought Lewis twice. The first fight ended in a controversial draw. The second fight was a clear loss. Those two results tell the full story. Holyfield could not solve the Lewis puzzle. He could not get inside. He could not outwork him. He could not outlast him. Lewis was too big, too skilled, and too smart. He used his 6'5" frame and 84-inch reach to keep Holyfield at arm's length. Every time Holyfield tried to close the distance, Lewis jabbed him back. Every time Holyfield tried to brawl, Lewis tied him up. It was systematic destruction. It was clinical. It was cold. Lewis's power was calculated. He did not waste energy. He did not chase knockouts. He just broke you down piece by piece until there was nothing left. Holyfield's inability to beat Lewis showed his limitations. Against Foreman, he could move. Against Tyson, he could clinch. Against Bowe, he could fight back. But against Lewis, he had no answer. Lewis was the modern heavyweight, tall, technical, and impossibly difficult to beat. Holyfield's two fights with Lewis marked the end of his time at the top. He was outboxed, outclassed, and outgunned. Lewis did not just beat him, he exposed him. The draw in the first fight was generous. Many observers thought Lewis won clearly. The rematch removed all doubt. Lewis dominated from start to finish. He made Holyfield look old, slow, and small. That is the cruelest form of defeat. Not a knockout, not a war. Just systematic proof that you do not belong in the ring anymore. Lewis had a 70.8% knockout rate, which was lower than the others on this list. But his knockouts came from precision, not desperation. He picked his spots. He waited for openings. He punished mistakes. Against Holyfield, Lewis never needed to chase the knockout because he was winning every round. He controlled distance. He controlled tempo. He controlled the narrative. Holyfield left both fights knowing he had been thoroughly beaten by a superior fighter. Finally, there was David Tua, the man Holyfield never fought professionally but feared more than most. Tua earned his place on this list through sparring alone. That is remarkable. Holyfield shared the ring with Tua in training and walked away convinced that Tua was one of the hardest punchers alive. Tua's left hook was frightening, according to Holyfield. He said Tua could take your head off if you blinked at the wrong time. Tua stood 5'10". He was short, compact, and built like a fireplug. His punches traveled short distances but carried devastating power. Holyfield compared Tua's power directly to Tyson's. He said Tua's left hook was as dangerous as anything Tyson threw. That is elite company. Tua recorded 16 first-round knockouts during his career. That means he ended fights before they even started. That kind of power is rare. It is the kind of power that makes even champions rethink their plans. The fact that Holyfield ranked Tua among his 5 most feared punchers, despite never facing him in a real fight, speaks volumes. Sparring is unfiltered. There is no crowd. There is no belt. There is just you and the other guy, testing limits. The impact Tua delivered in those sessions must have been profound. It must have been unforgettable. Holyfield walked away from that experience knowing he never wanted to face Tua in a 12-round war. Maybe that was wisdom. Maybe it was fear. Either way, Tua's presence on this list is justified. His 82.7% knockout rate backs up everything Holyfield said. Tua was a wrecking ball in human form. Holyfield saw that firsthand and wanted no part of it when real stakes were involved. Looking back at these 5 names, a pattern emerges. Holyfield did not just fear power. He feared specific kinds of power that targeted his weaknesses. Foreman's crushing force threatened his survival. Bowe's relentless attrition drained his reserves. Tyson's explosive speed challenged his reflexes. Lewis's technical precision exposed his limitations. Tua's compact devastation promised instant destruction. Each man represented a nightmare scenario for Holyfield. Each man forced him to dig deeper than he wanted to go. Holyfield survived most of them, but survival is not the same as victory. His record against these 5 men tells the story. He beat Foreman once. He lost twice to Bowe and won once. He beat Tyson twice. He drew once with Lewis and lost once. He avoided Tua entirely. That is a combined record of 4 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw against the men he feared most. Not bad, but not dominant either. The statistics reveal uncomfortable truths. Against these 5 elite punchers, Holyfield was essentially a 500 fighter. He won as much as he lost. The only reason his overall record looks better is because he padded it with wins against lesser opponents. But when faced with the absolute best, with the men who carried real knockout power, Holyfield struggled. He survived, yes, but he did not dominate. He scraped by, he held on, he endured. Those are not the words we use for greatness. Those are the words we use for survivors. The real cost of facing these 5 was not measured in wins and losses. It was measured in damage. Holyfield's body absorbed punishment that would have ended most careers. His chin held up under shots that should have knocked him unconscious. His heart kept him standing when his legs wanted to quit. But all of that came at a price. The Bowe trilogy aged him. The Foreman fight battered him. The Tyson fights tested him. The Lewis fights broke him. By the time Holyfield retired, he was a shell of the fighter he once was. His reflexes were gone. His speed was gone. His power was diminished. He fought on too long because he did not know how to stop. But the damage was done years earlier. The 5 men on this list took something from him that he could never get back. Holyfield's career spanned decades, but his peak lasted only a few years. That peak coincided directly with facing these 5 destroyers. No other heavyweight in history faced such a concentrated gauntlet of elite power punchers. Ali never fought all the hardest hitters of his era in succession. Frazier did not either. Holmes avoided some dangerous opponents. But Holyfield? He ran straight into the fire, he fought them all, and they all left marks on him that time could not erase. His professional record stands at 44 wins, 10 losses, and 2 draws. But 8 of those 10 losses came after his wars with these 5 men. The damage accumulated. The miles caught up. The body broke down. He kept fighting because he loved the sport. But the sport stopped loving him back years before he retired. Holyfield's legacy is secure. He is a 4-time heavyweight champion. He is a Hall of Famer. He is one of the greatest fighters of his generation. But this list reveals the hidden truth. Holyfield was not the best. He was the bravest. He was not the strongest. He was the most willing to suffer. He did not dominate the division. He survived it. That is not a criticism. That is reality. Holyfield faced 5 of the most dangerous punchers in boxing history and came out the other side. He earned respect not by being unbeatable, but by being unbreakable. He earned his place in history not by avoiding danger, but by running straight toward it. The real deal was never about being perfect. It was about being brave enough to be scared.